Aloha, geographers. Let's talk about drought in Australia. Yeah, Australia is the driest inhabited continent, and we live there, so we need to talk about droughts. Some learning goals for you. Write these down. You're going to know what drought is and what its impacts are. You're going to know what the El Niño Southern Oscillation is. There should be a little doodacky on the end there, which I forgot to put on. So it's like that. The little doodacky on the N in Spanish means you pronounce it like an NY instead of an N. So it's not El Nino, it's El Niño. Anyway, so you're going to know what the El Niño Southern Oscillation is, and you're going to be able to create and interpret a graph. You're going to make a graph. I'm going to give you a data table, and you're going to turn it into a bar graph. Yay! Okay, what is drought? Simple. It's a long period with below average rainfall. So the drought conditions might not be the same in one place to another because average rainfall is different in different places. So drought's just a long period of below average rainfall for that place. In Australia, there's a lot of drought, and it's the driest inhabited continent because we get a lot of dry air brought by high atmospheric pressure. Air with high atmospheric pressure is dry. It's pretty much. Low atmospheric pressure is cold. So when you see, like on the weather report, you see a big H, that means high pressure. So the air is high pressure, which usually means it's warm and dry. Cold air pressure, you'll see is a big C on those weather maps, and that means a cold front, and the weather is usually really stormy and wet and cold. Okay, let's have a look at a few pictures of drought. Here's a picture of the exact same place in drought and not in drought. Yeah, not cool. That's a bit sad. I don't want to look at that too long, but this is the kind of thing that happens, like animals get injured. Yeah, we often just think, oh yeah, drought's bad for people, but it's very bad for not just livestock, not just farm animals, but also wild animals. Here we go. Some maps here. So this is interesting. We can do quite a few things here because we're looking at 3 different graphs. So we can look at the change over time, and we can see how much drought there is. So you're going to learn about what this map's about from looking at the legend. So look at the colors there, right? So when it's up towards the purple, right. So we need to do some groundwork before we can figure out what this map's telling us. Percentage of the mean. Mean is another word for average. So because I told you it's a rainfall map, right? So 100%, sort of this sort of yellowy and light green, that 100% of the mean just means average. 100% of the average is the average. Yeah. So anything on this map that's showing as light green or yellowy, that's basically roughly its typical rainfall pattern. Yeah. As it gets to the darker greens and into the blues, that's more rainfall than the mean, than the average. And as it gets towards the brown, that's less rainfall than the mean, less rainfall than the average. So in 2010, we see that there was most of the stuff here is about typical, usual rain pattern because it's this light green area, which is around about the average. And then there's quite a lot in Northern Territory and Northern WA that was above the mean, above the average. So all this purple and dark blue, that's really, really rainy. Let's go forward to 2016. Still got a similar pattern here. There's a lot of above average rainfall in these areas, not quite as much as 2010. Yeah, so still above average rain in a lot of those places, but a little bit less above average in 2016 compared to 2010. Now skip forward to 2018, and it's a completely different situation here. It's all browns and reds, which means it's 20% or even 0% of the average. So very little rain. This is across the whole country. This is when Australia was in a massive drought. So that's 3 years ago from when I recorded this video. Yep. So we go from 2010, above average rainfall, 2016, a little bit above average rainfall, to 2018, way below the average rainfall. Yeah. Fun. Right, ENSO. those initials stand for the El Niño Southern Oscillation. Oscillation just means to flip back and forth, yeah? So the Southern Oscillation is the flipping back and forth of a weather pattern between Asia and the Eastern Pacific. And you'll see some maps which should help explain that a bit better in a sec. So it's a shift in air pressure between Asia and East Pacific. Yeah? Air pressure makes a big difference to weather. So in an El Nino year, there is less rain in Australia. So if you hear people saying, oh, there's going to be an El Nino this year, that means less rain, more likely to be drought. The opposite of that is La Nina. In a La Nina year, that means there is more rain than average in Australia. So we go from normal years, then El Nino years, less rain, more drought, to a La Nina year, more rain. Right, let's have a look at some maps. We might clear this up a bit more. At the top, we have a normal year. Yep. So there are two cycles going on. There's air, that's the air going around is this orange thing here, and then you got the water current going underwater as well. We're mostly interested in the above air stuff there, yeah? So in a typical year, dry sinking air causes droughts over here in South America, and then we get that nice cold air, and it rises up and creates rain. So in a normal year, we get rain in Australia, normal amount of rain. In an El Nino year, down here, the second one, notice that all the arrows are going in the exact opposite direction. Yeah, so it's rainy in South America, dry in Australia. So El Nino year, dry in Australia, normal year, normal amount of rainfall. Let's have a look at another map. Here we go. So in a normal year, you get rain here, and it's dry here. In an El Nino year, it's dry here, wet here, and it's also a little bit warmer in North America. I'll show you one last map. So El Nino, these are the areas that are affected by El Nino. So it's not just Australia and the East Pacific, but mostly so. So in an El Nino year, so everything, well, let's take a step back. What's this map telling us? We know it's areas affected by El Nino. So this map is showing how the weather changes in an El Nino year. Let's have a look at the key. Everything with blue lines means it's wetter. So in an El Nino year, it's wetter in South America, Florida, and then in the middle of the Pacific. In an El Nino year, okay, what about the brown ones? And the brown, so these areas are drier in El Nino year. So basically all of Australia is drier in an El Nino year. And some places are warmer in an El Nino year, like Japan is warmer in an El Nino year. There we go. So there's three graphs showing El Nino. If you're not wrapping your head around that, then go back and have a look at those three maps again. Now let's talk about the impacts of drought in Australia. So obviously agriculture, farming, worst hit by miles. Farmers lose money. There's lots of job losses in rural areas. And of course the environment suffers. So not just livestock and farm animals, but also wild animals die. And we lose topsoil. When there's a drought, there's no water keeping the topsoil there, so the topsoil blows away. And it's that topsoil that's really, really important for growing vegetables. So if we lose topsoil, our ability to grow vegetables is reduced, and that is not cool. Here we go. Here's some impacts from drought. All those various impacts. Some more impacts. These are impacts specifically just for farmers. Right, activity time. There is a table. Got the years, you got the average rainfall for the whole year. Turn that data table into a graph. Make sure it's got a border, axis, labels, legend, title, and source. And the source for this one is the Bureau of Meteorology, BOM, 2019. Make sure that you use a ruler, do it on graph paper. I don't want to see it just hand drawn. Yeah, use a ruler when you're making graphs. Once you've made your graph with belts, you are going to write 3 or 4 sentences explaining what we can learn from that graph. Time for a video. This is all about what causes droughts. Take it away.
Think back over the past 5 years. Has there been a variation in the amount of rainfall in your area? If you think there has, it makes sense. Australia has one of the most variable rainfall patterns anywhere in the world. The reasons for this are many, but the most prominent is the southern oscillation, a climactic phenomenon which sees a cyclic variation of atmospheric pressure at sea level across the eastern and western regions of the southern Pacific Ocean. It occurs as a result of the periodic warming and cooling of the ocean's surface. The effect produced by warm currents is called El Niño, and the effect caused by cooler currents is called La Niña. The term Walker circulation used here refers to the movement of air in the atmosphere. British meteorologist Gilbert Walker identified this pressure difference and called it the Southern Oscillation Index. El Niño brings periods of low rainfall to Australia. Drought is typically experienced during an El Niño event.
And essentially what it means is that the currents in the Pacific Ocean, there are warm currents flowing in a El Niño year, flowing along the coast of the Americas, and there's cold water in the eastern seaboard of Australia. And warm waters in the ocean is good for rain. You'll get lots of rain. It's not so good for fisheries in the Americas. You get fisheries collapse in El Niño years. But over in the Americas, they'll get more rain on average with an El Niño event. And here in Australia, where we've got the cold water on the eastern seaboard, that'll be less rain. La Niña is the opposite. You'll get more rain, you'll get warmer water in Australia and less rain in the Americas.
In an average 10-year period, Australia's climate patterns are normal for 4 years and affected by El Niño and La Niña for 3 years each. This is particularly noticeable in the east of the continent.
Really easy and quick reflection activity for you today. I just want you to summarize today's lesson in exactly 12 words. That's it. Thank you for taking part in this lesson. Keep it real.